think everyone who has gone through an entrepreneurial journey has had doubters and naysayers and people have laughed at their product and whatnot. And I remember when I first started posting on social media, one of my best friends started laughing at me.
It can be a bit, what's the word, a bit embarrassing, you know, when you come up with an idea, you can be a little self-conscious because you think people are, what's he on about? Why is he doing that?
What gave you the internal belief to go out there and look to patent the product? What gave you the confidence to think that it was good enough to actually be patented?
A little life lesson I had a few years prior just made me promise myself to go with my gut in terms of if I think something is...
I think, to be fair, like I get where you're coming from, Matt, because a lot of people, and I say this for myself, in like I'm working like really hard, and I'm actually not. I'm actually probably resting more than what someone working hard would rest.
We're all grappling with something. Each and every entrepreneur, business owner, and leader experiences growing pains, no matter where they are on their business journey. On Grappling Growth, we discuss the challenges we consistently face in striving for more, sharing strategies, ideas, and thoughts on how to grapple with growth. We're building a platform where you can join us sharing your challenges and successes alike, whilst growing. So, you coming along?
Welcome back to episode 20 of the Grappling Growth podcast with me, Joe Testouri, my co-host, Erald Krasniqi, and today we are joined by someone who I've been working with for the past 2.5 years, Matt Sharp, the founder of Fortress Boxing, an e-commerce sports brand based here in the UK. And Matt, I've said this to you privately, but I've been so proud to work one-to-one with you, watch the business grow over the last 2.5 years. And I think we were speaking just before we went live with this, and you kind of downplayed the success of the business, but I think you should be bloody proud of what you've done so far. But Matt, kind of getting into that, could you give people a quick elevator pitch into you as a person? I know quite a bit about you, but just tell our guests how you started and how the concept of Fortress Boxing came around.
Sewing machine. And when I say I pinched it, my mom knew I'd taken it because she had to teach me a little bit, and I go on YouTube and work out how you do it. It was more the embarrassment of my girlfriend coming home and seeing me on this sewing machine, because I'd come up with ideas all the time and she'd be like, oh, what's this? What are you doing now? That sort of thing. And, you know, you do get a bit like, it can be a bit, what's the word? A bit embarrassing, you know, when you come up with an idea, you can be a little self-conscious because you think people are, oh, what's he on about? Why is he doing that? Like, oh, God. People can do that. And I think the older you get, certainly with myself, the more confident you get, you just don't care anymore. Now I'd happily sew all day for it. You know, not that I can sew. But that was that. So I basically drew it, got some fabrics. I fabricated this hand wrap. It was awful. It fell apart within 10 minutes. But I got half decent. And then I'd give them a go. And I was like, this is all right. I think this will work. But then, obviously, I went boxing at a high level, and I needed it to be, you know, something a professional would use. So I had a few mates, obviously, that were pros, and I gave them out. And he was so Ishmael Ellis. So I'll give him a name drop there. Ishmael Ellis. So he was the Birmingham boxer, and he was a Midlands title at the time. Then he was welterweight Midlands title. And he took him to the gym for me. And he was my plumber. It wasn't my plumber. He was a contractor I used from the building sites, and he would come in. So that's how we knew each other. I said, could you ever go with these? And he was like, having a little giggle at them. And then after a few weeks, he was like, mate, can you get me some more of these? These are really good. They're just falling apart. And then that's how it started. And that's when I realized, you know what, there's something here. And that was the little push I needed, because doesn't matter what your friends say that don't box, because not really any of my friends box. Anyone says, when a professional at that level is saying, these are good, people in the gym want these, that gave me that, right, let's do this. And that's how that gave me enough confidence there to get out of that bubble of negativity and see the positives in it, you know, from the people that matter, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to get the user feedback when you're going into like product development, as I'm sure you know way better than me, is like kind of the crucial first step before you actually go into like, is this a viable, like scalable solution? that you can make money on?
This is what you'd call the concept and development stage, or the research and development stage. So I have an idea. I am personally quite comfortable with the idea. Then we need to make sure that we can get the design right. The design, the concept has to be right. So does the product work? Does it work? Will it work? That's when he goes and uses it. He uses it for several weeks. Now, his opinion at that stage was almost enough for me. Because again, I wasn't coming in blind. I've been boxing 10 years myself at this time. Mates in, I had to keep it quiet, but I'd show the odd person in the gym and stuff, and they'd quite like it. But then to make it a bit, you don't know if you've got a business just because you've got a product that works. That's not, if they cost £1,000 to manufacture, then that's not viable, is it? No one's going to do it. And that's a little bit of the trick with the boxing was, obviously hand wraps, your standard hand wraps, certainly at the time, they're £5. They're £5. So I knew at this stage, the next stage was having a seamstress manufacture, make them for me. Just for sampling, just for product, testing reasons. Let's see if we can make a proper, fundamental prototype. But I was paying her about 180 quid to make a pair. So then it's, right, how are we going to make this viable? Because even if you get it down to, the product at this stage, it couldn't be any more than, say, £50 for a customer to buy it. They're not going to do it. Well, at least that was my thought. But then that wasn't the case. I ended up getting them made through a seamstress, local seamstress, because I'd started advertising the product. I'd created the website, and I'd had a negotiation with her. I was like, right, this is how we're going to make it. We're really happy with the prototypes. They're lasting a long time. People in the gyms want them. So we were doing sort of, you could call them like backdoor sales. People would say to Ish, "Oh, can you get me some?" And then he said, "Can you get me some?" And I said, "Yeah, it's going to be like 180 quid because that's how much I wasn't trying to make money at this stage. This is how I wanted the feedback." And you'd get the occasional person doing it. And then before you know it, I thought, let's set up the website. So I created the website myself. I think it was on Wix. And at that time, I was also half decent on Photoshop, so I kind of photoshopped the images. They were. It was a fill-out form. You'd fill out the form to choose your colours, etc., your padding densities. That's how I justified the price. And again, this was no rip-off. I wasn't making any money here. The justification in the price was basically, look, these aren't for everyone. They're not £5 hand wraps. But what they are is, if this is your career, just like me at the time, I was a builder, I go and buy the £400 drill over the £100 drill with the same spec. And there's a reason for that. One of them is quality, one's not. If you want a career in boxing, then you've got to look after your hands. They're your tools. So that was how I thought, do you know what? No, this isn't mad. And even if 9 out of 10 of the boxers in the gym are saying, no, that's crazy, no one's going to buy that. Well, 9 out of 10 of them aren't going to be pro. They're never going to box again in a year or two. They're gone. But it was a very niche market at this stage. But the people who were serious, and granted had the money, would do it. And they were buying them at very small scale. And then I managed to get different seamstresses. We'd simplify the manufacture process with the seamstress, change a few of the parts. Making them better it was making them cheaper to manufacture, but it was actually making them better. This is where simplification within the product made the product better, because there was too many functional parts. They look great, but just more parts, more wear and tear. They weren't as robust. So actually, over the years, the product now is far less complex than what it was.
Yeah.
And with that, the brand grew. We then started mass manufacture, where I ended up in China at first, but I had a disaster with China. That was all. Just the product quality just wasn't there. It's a big gamble when you're dealing with manufacturers you've never met, you never will meet. You've got no security. It's difficult. But I managed to sell them. There was a lot of problems with a lot of the stock, but it was just a case of keeping the customer happy at that stage. Any problems? But the brand gradually grew. I managed to nail down some quality manufacturers, getting the price at a price point that I believe is fair.
With that, what timeline are you talking about when you were going out to Ishmael and giving them out to people from the gym?
From its conception, in my mind.
Yeah, what years are we talking about, from where to where?
I would say it was 2017. 2017. I'd say 2017 to the end of 2018. It was from the conception of just a scrappy, crappy thing I'd made with my mom's sewing machine to the end of 2018. We were mass manufacturing.
When did you file for the patent initially, and when was it approved?
2017. Around the time Ish was testing my stuff. Yeah, I didn't want to apply for the patent prior to him because I think his say so, and the professionals in the gym, their say so was whether I was gonna. I had all the drawings ready. Thankfully, obviously, with my design background, I was capable of doing all the sketch work, so I didn't have to pay anyone to do any of that, apart from obviously the submission with the lawyers. But in terms of the technical, the drawing, the annotations of the drawing, all of that, I had the skills to do so. That made it far less expensive for me to do that.
That you mentioned earlier on in the pod, which was, you mentioned 2017, Ishmael essentially validated the product for you, but away from other people, and I know, and I think everyone who has gone through an entrepreneurial journey has had doubters and naysayers, and people have laughed at their product and whatnot. And I remember when I first started posting on social media, one of my best friends started laughing at me. But for you personally, what gave you the internal belief to go out there and look to patent the product? What gave you the confidence to think that it was good enough to actually be patented?
A little life lesson I had a few years prior just made me promise myself to go with my gut in terms of, if I think something is not in everything, as I say, I'm no business guru. I don't know a lot about everything, but when it comes to something practical, logical, physical, I feel like I've got very good instincts. And so what happened with me was, when I was about 17, it was in between going from high school to college, my dad always had me working and that. So if I wasn't at work at one of the part-time jobs or whatever I was doing in that summer holidays, he would have me doing stuff around the house. And one of the jobs he had me doing was painting the spare room, something like that. And I said, all the stuff's up there in the garage. Go and get it all from the garage. It's all there, everything you need. Okay, so quite a large plot of land he's got. So where the garage was and the house was quite far. So I go and get the stuff out, the shed, sorry, not the garage. Go and get the stuff, get it all back, couple of trips, get in there, tape up, mask, prep the room for painting, get all your brushes, your rollers, all your stuff. Right then. Oh, how do I open the paint lid? Can't open the paint lid. How ridiculous is that? I now need to go and get a knife or a screwdriver. Could I find a knife strong enough? No. Screwdriver, I had no flat bit screwdrivers, only had a posit. So I'm now there for about 45 minutes. I've got everything here, and now I have to buy or have another tool, nothing to do with painting, to open the lid. So that was when I just thought, this is crazy. So then I've still got the drawings, actually. So basically come up with the idea of effectively having the end of a screwdriver on a paintbrush handle. Makes perfect sense. Why is it not on every paintbrush in the world? Crazy. So I came with the flat bit of steel that's injection molded with the plastic handle around it, so that it's got the strength, because the steel would be in there, and you'd have on the end of it, you could even have a little hook to put, a little hole at the end of it, effectively like a 10p piece that's just molded into the plastic. Begged my dad, this is a great idea. Can we try and patent it, please, blah, blah, blah. And as I say, because I was always interested in, I'd done my college, I just finished college, hadn't I? So at that stage, I think I'd finished college and I was going into uni. I think it was that period, actually. Yeah. So I'd already had a bit of a background knowledge of patents, and I was very interested in design. And it was like, no, people who just use a screwdriver. No, there's no point. That would probably cost a fortune to make. And at that stage, I didn't have the confidence to be like, no, it doesn't. It only costs this much. It only costs that. You know what I mean? So I was just like, oh, that's fun. No, I'm sure that would work. That would work. And it drove me mad. And then when I actually, unfortunately, became effectively in the building trade, not there's anything wrong with it. It wasn't my aspirations. It's actually a great trade. It's a great. It's set me up. So a great. I'm not putting it down in the slightest. Not anyway. 7 years or so into my trade, I walk into, I think it was a B&Q, and there on the shelf is Dulux. Dulux, probably the biggest paint brand in the world. They've got my paintbrush exactly as I designed it. No, they didn't copy me. It wasn't public knowledge, but that there was, I don't care how next time, if I've got that confidence in something, it doesn't matter what anyone says, even if it's your dad or your mom, no, I'm doing it. So that's where it comes back into the question. When that was, I had enough gut instinct, and I didn't need anyone else's money at this stage. But lost the money through patents. It wasn't going to break me. Yeah, it would empty my pockets a bit, but it wasn't going to be. I wasn't gambling with my life, and I enjoyed doing it. So
a lot of the success of entrepreneurial endeavors comes from enjoyment. And there's a very strong quote, which is, the man who enjoys walking walks further than the guy who's looking for the destination. And I think, to your point there, you found something that you loved and you were passionate in your pursuit of just trying it. And for you, it wasn't a case of, I need to make this work. It just is a case of, I just want to give this a go, because I just want to prove to myself that I don't want to let anyone else get in the way of just testing it for yourself. And I'm super curious, because I want to Google it afterwards. What's the name of the Dulux paintbrush?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. It's It just taught me a lot. It gave me a little bit of confidence. It's very frustrating though, because sure I'd be a wealthier man now if I stuck by my guns. But I mean, I don't know how well the paintbrush is doing. Don't know how well it did, but I'm sure it makes sense. I mean, it's. But your point there is absolute. Again, the older you get, the more things you do, you realise that the destination, I don't think it actually exists. There isn't one. There is that journey that was always the fun bit. Even when you think you're struggling, even when you're not enjoying it, it's actually the enjoyable bit. When you're up at 3 a.m. because you've got something in your head and you just want to get it out, and then in the morning you're moaning because you're tired. No, I've worked all night. But you did that because you were enjoying it, really. You could have gone to bed. You were enjoying doing it. And I'm a bit like that. I'm an all or nothing type person. And that once then the business starts up, it's great. It's exciting. You're worrying about the bills. You're worrying about money. You're worrying about everything else. Because I'd left a profitable business to do that. And I was doing the two on the side because Fortress was very, but I had to treat it like it was a full-time thing. It had to hit the ground running. That was it. So all the time you're chasing the dream of creating a larger business, and then before you know it, it's actually getting a bit out of your hands. And Joe will know this. You're so used to wearing all the hats that it's difficult to, hand over the roles to new people. Whatever that is, whether it's just fundamental customer service, we're a gym as well. So I'll be in the gym and there'll be people just buying stock off us, and I'll be the person there doing it. And I have been that. I'll answering emails, and you're doing everything. And then before you know it, no matter how successful it's getting, it's not fun anymore because I'm not doing what I enjoyed doing, which was the designing, which was the innovation, that's what I want to be doing. And it's only this year, again, I've really had a good month or so where I've managed to put pen to paper, and I'm just applying for my next patent now. on a completely different product. Still in the boxing industry, but just by giving up those roles, and I've hired a few people full time now, and it's just a case of just that journey bit. So now I'm a little bit more excited again because I'm chasing it. I like getting my pencil out, drawing it again, and it's that journey. And in reality, if it fails, it fails. As long as it doesn't, as long as it doesn't really damage you financially or mentally, or then just enjoy that ride, I suppose. Because if you were to look back at yourself 5 years from now, if you could look at yourself 5 years ago, I'd say, well done, Matt. Well done. 5 years ago, within my own psyche, I was enjoying that. I was enjoying that chase, probably more than where I'm at now. So it's a case of just constantly enjoy the journey, because I don't think the end's ever really there. And I'm still only a young guy, so I'm not a philosopher by all means, but I just think that's something I'm learning, that it just try and enjoy the journey and keep your head
up. Journey of just being on this hedonic treadmill, which just keeps on starting up every day. And I think there's probably goals that you've achieved in the last 2-3 years that yourself 5, or if you want to throw back to the 17-year-old Matt in 2004-5 is looking at, if he saw what you achieved, he'd see that as a dream. And I think that's why it's really important to look at the journey and appreciate what's being done, is because the things that you've achieved now, and we've achieved now, hitting your first 10K month, hiring people, quitting your job, these are things that you rarely ever look back at, pat yourself on your back. And I know, Matt, you've got children yourself, and I'm sure your son looks up to you as an inspiration and thinks one day I want to be like Daddy. And you probably think, no, you don't. I've got all the stress.
Yeah. Well, it's very kind of you. It's very kind of you. I don't know. It's hard to take in any, I don't know, pride in what you've accomplished. I think it's something you shouldn't take too much. I don't think it's good for you to blow your own horn at all, because people I think there's a lot of positive, there's a lot of influences out there. There's a big trend of mental health, and of course it's really important. But some people are just kidding themselves a bit. There's a lot of, oh, you're doing so well, you should be so happy. Really? Like, you really trying your hardest? Or just, are you really are you just after the, oh, well done, you're doing well? Like, are you really doing it? Because I just see some people just kidding themselves, if I'm honest. I don't want that to come across nasty, but yeah. Don't know if that
no,
makes
I think, to be fair, like I get where you're coming from, Matt, because a lot of people, and I say this for myself and for people that are watching, like sometimes I've been like, I'm working like really hard, and I'm actually not. If I boil it down, I'm actually probably resting more than someone working hard would rest, or I'm like doing things, like wasting time on things I shouldn't. And I think people get caught up quite a lot on, if we're talking like growing a business, and I'd love to hear your perspective, like when you're growing a business and you are wearing all the hats, sometimes you spend your time on stuff that actually isn't revenue generating or actually going to impact the business, and you're just like fritting around with emails and stuff that is just like taking up time but not actually moving the needle.
Joe will know that working with me. I did that all the time. I'd say I focused 90% on my stuff that would never move the needle. And again, there's a fine line between. I'm not saying work your fingers to the bone. There's no pride in that. Like, why would you want to work constantly? Certainly, if you're not enjoying it that much, you shouldn't just strive to work. I mean, that's a busy fool, if you ask me. But what I'm saying is, what you're saying is, people tend to kid themselves that they're working much harder than they are. I've done it myself. I do it all the time, and that's where it's like, well, yeah, I've done well here, but if I really want to do better, let's do this, let's do this, and let's do this.
And you've gone from being a local Midlands lad who was selling directly to boxers who you knew, gyms, and I know with what we've done together, you've expanded globally, you've franchised successfully, unsuccessfully, so to speak, expanded wholesale in Australia, America, South Korea, I believe. There's some crazy places that I've seen when I look into the back end. what would you say has been one of the hardest challenges in growing?
Good. I would say growing isn't. If you've got a good product, growing isn't difficult. And I mean that's difficult. The problem is growing profitably, successfully. Anyone can throw X amount of money in ads or different revenue streams in terms of advertising and marketing. And I could, I'm sure, double the turnover of the company within a year, no problem. But is it going to be profitable? I doubt it. So that's the difficulty, finding the balance between growth and profits. That's what I'd say. And we've still got a long way to go, there's still so many countries we've not made a dent in. But I do prefer I think organic grows a lot, but it's safer for your money. And I've grown in a slow way. In a way, it's grown slowly because I haven't had the big budgets to throw at things. I haven't, and I've had the good fortune of good reviews, and then getting Joe on board, getting the right people in. Again, I was running ads. I don't know anything about, back when I started, I was testing ads, I was running ads, I was doing all the graphics. And really, I didn't know what I was looking at. So it's a case of getting the right people in that can push your brand on a budget that I've done the maths on. And it's just, that's what I'd say is difficult in just staying on top of your numbers.
I think Erald and I have both seen it in our businesses where I had a very, very good period where I saw explosive growth. And I take the lessons from what happened there because I just went gung-ho. I got really happy, started buying extra equipment, hired extra people. And I think a lot of the time you kind of live in this fairy tale if it happens to you the first time, where you think the growth is just going to go like that. When in reality, you might go like that, but there's nothing to say the next quarter you might drop and there was seasonality or whatever. And I think you have to go through those experiences to humble yourself and say, actually, I'm going to look at a 12-month moving average and then base my costs on the 12-month moving average, as opposed to, oh, we've had a great quarter, let's do this. So that was really invaluable there. And I think a lot of young entrepreneurs who will listen to this podcast, I hope they take that as one of the biggest points that you've made from there. Aside from that sort of growth, one of the things that I think has really stood Fortress Boxing head and shoulders above the rest is a question that Erald sniped from the internet. Erald, can you share it with us, or to Matt?
Yes, as you know, we have another an entrepreneur asked question which we like to give our guests to get their perspective on, and one of them is around sort of the influencer side. So before we get into the question, Matt, I know you've done a bit of, like, I wouldn't say influencer marketing, but I guess like brand ambassadors have been a big part of like Fortress Boxing growth. Could you tell us a bit about like what sort of brand ambassadors you've brought on board, or whether influencer has been a big thing for you as a channel?
Yeah, massively. Certainly starting off, that was, again, going back to the previous thing with money. Didn't have the money to throw at anything. The growth had to be organic. There was no pot of money to throw at anything. There was no investors. It was just me working out of a garage. My garage, there was actually a rat in there, and the roof was leaking as anything. Minus 13. I think you were. So it was a case of just approaching people with blue ticks, anyone with a blue tick at the time, and just hoping they'd saying, "Would you like to try a pair?" And thankfully, some would get back to me and they'd try them. And let's say at this stage, the product was in its very early, at the beginning of its development. So it was a very innovative product. It was very good, but it had flaws. It was too big. It was too big for one. But little flaws, which were, years ago. So they're not there now. But some of them loved them, and that's I didn't have the money to approach them from look, I'll give you money, can you do a post? They wouldn't even post a picture of them, a lot of them. It was just a case of getting them to like it, me knowing that there are other ways to this market, and it's a case of them being in the gym with 100 other kids and the top boy in that gym's wearing them. They haven't got to be all over the internet. But that's still a huge form of marketing. That kind of in this internet age, or social media age, I should say, people forget that. There's still other areas of marketing. And the internet is by far the biggest. I'm not going to deny it. But that is you could go on the internet and have 1 million people look at your posts. Only a small portion of them are your market, your actual market. That box that take it very seriously, that are willing to spend the money, that have sore hands. Whereas people in that gym, they all box. They all want to be boxers. So that's a key aspect. And at the beginning, when you don't have the money, that's the only way you can grow. And then when I got a bit more money, there was money in the pocket, then I could go and, use Facebook and other avenues. But definitely in terms of getting the right athletes on board that aren't going to cost you a fortune, humble people that are willing to help someone out, that's really important, I think, really important. And stick with them as well. Be loyal to them as best as you can. In terms of paying them at a later date, bigger stars, done it only a couple of times, and it's tended to backfire. So it's not something I would advise for a company of my size, but certainly some of the bigger brands, it's a must. They need to keep their key athletes on side with them, and it's not. I'm not really there. I could do it, but I think thankfully the product's developing. Certainly in the UK, reputation is such that there's world champions wearing it without sponsorship. I don't have to pay world champions to wear them. They'll wear them.
Can you name
that are currently wearing? Well, there's certainly Leon Edwards
sent photos of.
Oh gosh, Usyk, Leon Edwards, Darren Tomachenko,
Alan Bebic.
How do you remember?
My mind's gone blank.
I remember when we put the carousel on your website, just fighters, and I was actually blown away. I was marking out a little bit.
Andre Berto, Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. actually wore them. Dennis McCann. I'd say Roy's probably my favourite one, because someone of Roy's level. This again, if you meet the right person, Roy knew a fighter in his gym that was wearing them. And he just put me in touch with me. He put him in touch with me, and he was really humble, asked to have them. He got them, and he posted videos, and want nothing in return, And some people like that, I think that's lovely.
Yeah. And that point about Roy Jones Jr., I think for a good year, that was by far the best performing advert. And I think it is something that you might have younger fighters endorsing a product, but just having an older guy in his 50s, 60s, just sitting on the edge of a ring, just saying, these are the shit. It's real. Yeah.
For me, some people would boo-hoo a bit the old, they're not relevant anymore. But for me, they're the best ones, because they're the ones that have been in the game so long, and they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Most, you'd expect an athlete like that to go, what's this? What's wrong with good old hand wraps? No, the opposite. Wow, I wish I had these when I was fighting. My hands would have been way better. Yeah. Whereas young fighters is quite different. Young fighters are often acting arrogant about their health with their hands. Oh, I'm hard, it don't matter. You're the one being daft there. Like that. Much tougher men have been and gone, and all down to them breaking their hands because they were trying to act too tough when not protecting themselves.
I think I got sidetracked.
The question was whether influencer, because I know it's been a big thing for Fortress Boxing, if ecom brand owners, ecom websites should have that as a main channel. From the sound of things, you think that especially early on, it's a great channel to integrate. But you've also had the the benefit of it being more organic? Is it an investment channel that you would imagine a current ecom that's perhaps like a few steps behind you should like use?
Yeah, well, I do invest in it. I don't pay them a contract. I don't pay them a fee like a proper, a contractual athlete sponsorship where they're given X amount a month or per fight, etc. And I'm still, you're still having an expenditure in terms of the products you're giving them. They're not free. They're getting them for free.
Yeah.
But it's very, I'm not on a quota of stock that I have to get out to these people. It's just, hi Matt, can you send me some more? That'll be great. It's just a very casual chat. So, and I keep it like that. And I do not accept everyone that asks, because that's something I would advise. Don't get sucked into giving away all your stuff for free just because they've got a few thousand followers. Do not get doing that. You will just be. You need to have someone looking at the data to just check that it's worked. Check that giving this stuff away, your stock away, whatever your product is it successful in promoting the business? Because otherwise you're just throwing away money. You've got to make sure it's working. So drip feed it. You need that organic revenue coming from word of mouth, good reviews, and then just drip feed that scene. Sponsorship deals with different athletes and famous people, and then see it grow. And if it's growing, then feed it with a little bit more confidence, but do not solely do that. Certain products are different, but certainly in my game where it's not just an image thing, you can't just have some superstar wear them and everyone wants them. This isn't clothing, this is a functional product, and it has to work for people. It has to feel good on that person. So it would work better for other companies, other brands, different products than my own.
Friend of mine,
yeah, absolutely.
They turned around, set up an ecom brand last year. I won't mention who they are, what they do, but they spent, I don't know, a couple £100 more than what they could budget. Brand new business. I didn't advise for it, and I think there's a lot of lessons and models that I've learned off you on what you've done to promote and get your products in people's hands. But anyways, they went out and they paid a lot of money for interviews, and there was absolutely no ROI attributed there. And I think that's the lessons that younger, less experienced entrepreneurs can learn, is just because you pay sizable amounts of money, and money's always relative to people, doesn't guarantee said success. And I think I think Ben Francis has popularized influencer marketing with the model that he's done with Gymshark, and undisputed as to how good he scaled that brand. But there's a lot of people now who think, oh, let me just find someone within my ideal target audience by persona, give them the products, give it to 10 people, and voila, we're going to get these products out there. And I think that's a big key thing that people can learn.
You think the ship sailed, Matt?
I think that ship sailed in terms of just giving stuff and expecting your brand to grow. Gymshark hit it just at the right time. I'd say it was before the gym, the gym wear boom. Now every ad on socials is gym wear, isn't it?
So it's UGC. The saturation is ridiculous now. It's I think what we always try to identify, as I'm sure Matt will talk privately about the new product you're patenting, but I always think you have a wave of 12 to 24 months of a new trend, and if everyone else in the market is using influencers, using user-generated content. I mean, even now, if you see stuff on Instagram where someone's been gifted a product, they always have to put an ad, and it just sounds so monotonic that it's an advert, and those I just swipe past now.
Yeah.
100%. Some really good stuff in there, though, Matt. I think for any ecom brand owner that's like thinking about utilizing that channel, think about if that trend is still relevant. And in the sports niche, it perhaps might be. I think there's a big call to say that an athlete's opinion or what athletes are using is probably going to be a lot of what people are going to follow, but also what people in the gym are wearing on a day-to-day basis might also trigger. Like if everyone in the gym is wearing Gymshark, you're probably going to be like, oh, that's the gear that you want. If everyone's using the Fortress boxing fast wraps, then that would always be a big influence. But some really like useful knowledge in there, which I'm sure the listeners are going to be happy to to hear about. In terms of, to close it off, Matt, is there anything that you want to share with the audience about Fortress or yourself? Feel free to plug anything. But what's like the sort of key takeaway you want to give people listening to this pod?
I mean, I won't plug Fortress, but I just think for any young entrepreneurs out there, again, I've said before, I'm no business guru. I'm not from any sort of business background. I'm just quite logical, practical, just have a lot of common sense about you. Go into anything, any business, any business you're looking to start up or get involved in. Just do your research, stay, and give it your all. Give it your all. And then that's all I can advise.
Love it. Great message. Joe, do you want to close?
It has been a pleasure. And as I've said to you, watching the Fortress Boxing brand grow, I think it's fantastic to see. And the amount of people you've kind of got under your belt and what you're doing, I'm really excited to see what the next few years hold for the business. And whatever you do, whatever vertical